Mock number 2. This is the sports paper, 25 questions, but suitable for the other students to also listen along because they have the same questions. There's only 1 or 2 that would be different, so this is well worth doing. So the first question is the good old, what structure is known as the powerhouse of a cell? And that is the mitochondria. How many centrioles does the centrosome contain? 2. Which of the following best describes the role of melanin? Melanin is a pigment which protects skin from harmful UV radiation. And it's amazing how it happens. Inside your brain is the master gland, the pituitary, and it's got a melanocyte stimulating hormone that comes down to your skin, and the melanocytes are, say that's the top of the epidermis, and that's the base, the basal layer, the genivatimum. That's where the melanocytes are kept. And when they are stimulated from the brain will tell the skin, oh, you need protection from UV rays. It releases the melanin from the melanocytes into the skin, and that works its way up and it turns the skin brown. I know. Which of the following best describes the epidermis? And it says, and this is like it's not a trick question, but people do get fooled because it says it lies under the dermis, it contains small muscles, which makes the hair stand on end. It contains sebaceous glands. Now those last 2, that's the dermis. That is the dermis, not the epidermis. The epidermis doesn't have any sebaceous glands. That's underneath those layers. So the thing that describes it in this question is it's made up of 5 layers. So don't be fooled by that one. Remember, the epidermis has got the 5 layers, and underneath you've got the erector pili, you've got the sebaceous gland, you've got the nerve endings. Which of the following is an example of a short bone? And they give you trapezoid, zygomatic, temporal or hyoid. And the answer is the trapezoid, because that is one of the carpals. So knowing the names of the carpals is important, and the names of the tarsals, because it could be an easy question like that and you think, oh, I know what it is. The zygomatic, that's the cheekbone. That was another one. The temporal is here, and the hyoid is a peculiar bone that's in your throat, and it actually floats. It's not attached. Most bones are attached to another one so that they have movement, but that's the one, when they hang here, that's the one that breaks, the hyoid bone. The movement of a saddle joint, and the saddle joint can only be found, as far as I know, in your thumb, because it moves, it does circumduction, because it moves like that. And that's one of the differences between us and apes. They haven't got this, they can't do that. Because it's got here pronation, plantar flexion, supination, and the answer is circumduction. We can go in circles. What type of joint do the atlas and axis form? That's a nice one. They're the pivot, that's the pivot joint. It's not a hinge, it's not a gliding, it's not a saddle. The atlas and the axis are the 2 top on your vertebrae, and your cervical vertebrae, the 2 top, so special they've got the name of their own. Dorsiflexion is the flexing of the foot upwards. So if that was the foot, that's the bottom of my foot, then it's going upwards, because that's the dorsal, that's the plantar. Imagine that if that's a foot, that's planting itself on the ground, so that's the plantar. So the dorsal, if you think of a dorsal fin of a shark coming through the water. So that's the top, the dorsal. So the dorsal flexion, so that's the flexion, that's flexing your muscles, that's flexing the dorsal. So it's pointing upwards. What is meant by the insertion of a muscle? So we have origin and insertion. So the origin would be up here, say, and the insertion, it would have to cross a joint to make that come up, and it would be down here. So this is the insertion, is the attachment to bone at the moving end of a muscle. So you've got the choice here, the thickest part or whatever, but it is the attachment to the moving end of a muscle. Which of the following muscles flexes the elbow? That's the brachioradialis. You've got the flexor carpi to choose from here. Flexor carpi, if they mention flexor carpi anything, that's the lower arm. And there's also the triceps, and we know that that elongates muscle. How many pairs of spinal nerves are there? 31. That's just one to learn. In non-stressful situations, which nervous system slows the action of the heart? What slows the action of the heart? The parachute, the parasympathetic nervous system. Our body is trying for homeostasis all the time. The sympathetic nervous system works us up and the parasympathetic comes down. So it's a continual balancing act, and so the parasympathetic is always working to slow the action of the heart. What is the function of the adrenal medulla hormones? That is a fight or flight. So that is the answer, to prepare the body for fight or flight. What is the function of the parathyroid glands? They're on the thyroid, and they're four dots on there on the bow tie, and they control the calcium levels. If you haven't got enough, if you've got too much acid in your body and it's alkaline, your body will take the calcium out of your bones, for example, to put into the blood so that your pH level stays right. Your blood has got to be as stable as it can be. So out comes the calcium, because that's an alkaline from your bones, and it's your parathyroid glands that read what's happening in your body. What are the characteristics of arteries? Well, they've got thick walls and small lumen. So they're very strong, they're muscular, and they've got their muscular system to keep on pumping the blood, which is why if you cut an artery, you just keep bleeding, because their muscular cell walls on there, but they've got a small lumen, which means a small hole running through the middle. Whereas your veins have got thin walls and a large lumen, if you like. And that's why if there's somebody knocking on the door, just a minute, I'll be back.
Sorry.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Oh dear. Yeah, because get back to this. Your veins. If somebody stands up all day, for instance, hairdressers, anyone that's on their feet a lot, painters and decorators, they've got their veins have got to travel up through the body all the way back to the heart, and your gastrocnemius, your calf muscle, acts as a pump to pump it back up, because your heart, you haven't got a heart down there to pump up, so your muscles are acting as a pump to get it back up. But if you're standing for long periods of time, those walls which are thin get a bit tired, and they've got valves inside, and the valves which help the blood to flow up the body, back up, they get a bit weak, and then the vein starts bulging out, which is when they get varicose. And so they've got thin walls and a large lumen, and arteries have got thick walls and a small lumen. In which vessel does oxygenated blood travel from the lungs to the heart? Well, it can't be pulmonary artery because that goes away from the heart, so it can only be the pulmonary vein, because the oxygenated blood from the lungs needs to go back to the heart. So it goes from the lungs to the heart after it's had all the oxygen, the exchange of gases, goes back to the lungs through the pulmonary vein, and that's complete opposite to what you would think. You think veins, deoxygenated blood, but anyway, it's a different thing with the heart. Can't help it, that's the way it is. What is the function of the bronchioles? And the bronchioles take air to the alveoli. You've got the trachea, the bronchi, they move into bronchioles, which are like trees or broccoli. And at the end of these trees are tiny little alveoli, and that's what mixes with the blood circulation in the body to take back the oxygen back to the heart. It's all pretty amazing. Which of the following is correct during active exhalation, which is breathing out? So this is a really tricky one because they've got lots of, we've looked this up and we're sure the answer is the diaphragm relaxes, which means it goes up like that, and the intercostals contract. How is lymph finally drained back into the circulatory system? And they're not asking for a particular duct here, they're just saying through the lymphatic ducts. So that's a nice one. How is the lymph finally drained back into the circulatory through the ducts, the lymphatic ducts? What is the name given to the lymph node found in the groin area? And you've got popliteal, axillary, inguinal and cervical. And it's your inguinal. This is the inguinal, is your groin. The popliteal is back of the knee, always back of the knee. Axillary is under your arm, and cervical is on your neck. So sometimes you might get a question, where is this situated? And if they mention popliteal, axillary, cervical or inguinal, you know where it is. It's going to be exactly where they've mentioned. Axillary, if they say posterior, then you know it's going to be the back. If they say anterior, you know it's going to be the front. So you just can work it out if you haven't seen that exact question before. Where would you find Peyer's patches? Okay, and Peyer's patches are within the small intestine. They are you've got the tonsils up here to protect your body from bacteria, and you've got the Peyer's patches at the other end here to protect your body from bacteria. So it's two lines of defence. What is the action of lactase? To break down the specific disaccharides into monosaccharides. Just have to know that. Which part of the urinary system connects the medulla to the ureter? We've got renal pelvis. That was on the another one, I know, but they do come up again. What effect does bilirubin have on urine? So bilirubin gives urine its colour, and bilirubin is produced by the liver and passed down, and that's where we get the colour of our urine from. So this is a question that only the sports students would get. All the others could be for anybody, but this one, in general, what effect does massage have on the respiratory system? And it says tones the abdominal muscles, removes lactic acid, aids peristalsis, and the answer is relaxes the abdominal muscles. Peristalsis will be part of the digestive system. That starts here and then goes right the way through your digestive system, right until the other end. So, yeah, so that's the 25 questions for Mock 2 for sports.